Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Doctor.
You're fast becoming a magician. 1 minute you're on there, and then the next you're here. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you. Always good to see you. I'm actually so happy to see you, Ayo. It's been a while. Welcome back.
Thank
Good morning, Rufai. I hope you guys are all well.
Kemi.
Femi.
Kemi. Femi.
One of them.
Femi. You have done your implication.
Oh,
You see,
we have.
you came, you did the implication. Doctor, if I don't look at me with corner eye, I can see you. I'm seeing you on the monitor. It remains you, Ayo, and Dr. Abati.
It's on its way, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Let me just show the world.
Even I'm looking forward to seeing theirs. Oh. Okay.
Dr. Abati, over to you, sir. Ayo, over to you.
Ready.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. But let me tell you, very sweet of us all. Let me tell you what's happening around the world this morning. Now, the White House has defended President Joe Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter, sparing the younger Biden a possible prison sentence for federal felony gun and tax convictions. Biden had previously said that he would not pardon his son or commute his sentence after convictions in his two cases in Delaware and California. Now, in a statement released on Sunday evening, President Biden said he believes in the justice system, but also believes raw politics had infected the process and led to a miscarriage of justice. Now, this sweeping pardon covers any potential federal crimes that the 54-year-old Hunter may have committed over the course of a decade. Now, Republicans have lambasted the move, with President-elect Trump ironically calling it an abuse and miscarriage of justice. Now, it is ironic because Donald Trump himself, during his first term, issued 237 pardons, including one to his son-in-law's, Jared Kushner's father, Charles, who he was just made U.S. ambassador to France. Now, staying with this topic of Joe Biden, he's now currently in Angola. He's the first sitting U.S. president to make the trip to that Sub-Saharan country to mark the two nations' shared history in the transatlantic slave trade. Now, Biden today will speak at the National Museum of Slavery in Luanda, a site that includes a 17th century chapel where enslaved people were forcibly baptized before being sent to the Americas in chains. Now, he's expected to also announce a grant of $229,000 to restore the building. And in case you didn't know, the first Africans who arrived in the British colony of Virginia back in 1619 were captured in Angola. Overall, 4 million Angolans were forcibly transported to the Americas, mostly to Brazil, but also to now United States. Now, in addition to that, in addition to Biden's discussions about slavery, this Angola trip will also tout a major US-backed railway project that aims to divert critical minerals away from China towards the United States. Now, he'll be meeting with Angolan President João Lourenço later on today, and he's being greeted there by Angola's Minister of Exterior, or essentially their foreign minister. So he's received a warm welcome there.
So the main visit is for Lobito Corridor.
Yes.
It's, we can do historical ties for slave trade and everything. No. The Lobito Corridor is a very interesting corridor. Spans across Angola, pushes up to the Atlantic. It could be a corridor to be able to segue into Congo, where you collect a lot of mineral resources, lithium, and the other things. But the interesting fact is, most of those mines in Congo, China has their foothold there. In fact, China has also built another Sub-Saharan railway, where they are going to carry minerals through the Indian Ocean. A lot of this is to take resource away from Africa. Don't be deceived. They don't love Africa so much. It is how they can exploit. This is another colonialism. I know the consortium have broken down the project, American consortium, European consortium. In fact, the consortium that is working on it is the Trafigura and Montiel engine. I think it was Montiel engine supposed to do our Niger railway here. To Maradi. God knows where that railway is. So they have taken some portion of that to be able to get that rail across the Lobito corridor. And what they are saying is they will be able to facilitate trade. The truth is, it's never in Africa's interest. Although some Angolan networks are saying this is not recolonialism, it's a lie. It is recolonialism. If they truly love Africa, what they should do is they should build a lithium refiner in Congo and in Angola. But they will never do that. All they want to do is harness the rail line, Lobito corridor, and ship the product out. You know, if you go back to colonial times in Nigeria. That was why the British also built the first rail service in about 1900s. You know, they shipped it all the way from, I think it was from Oshogbo to the north, from the north to Apapa Wharf to ship out.
What's that, gold or?
Mineral resources from Nigeria. This was the exact thing. So to ship out mineral resources, they build rail lines. And that's what they have done. The Chinese have perfected that. Now the Americans who are coming into there to be able to ship out the resource of Congo.
I mean, it seems as though Angolan president may be feeling more comfortable with America. He's making this conscious decision to move away from China's influence. So perhaps whatever America's offering is in better
whatever
interest.
works for him. There's another project there that can be one for those that truly want to invest in Angola. It's the Lobito refinery. In fact, Dangote was meeting with the president the other day to talk about possibility of investing in the Lobito refinery.
Yes.
And it's going to be a 200,000 barrel refinery. Senegal holds 30% stake, and other stakeholders can come in there. But the most important thing is these people do not love Africa. It's a way to be able to exploit our resource. When are we going to open our eye? When are we going to have our own lithium refiner? Also on the African continent. For Joe Biden, he's a politician looked like another person. So for you that you think the Democrats and Republicans are different, they're not too much different. Just like Trump, just like Joe Biden. And Biden gave the flimsiest excuse. Hunter Biden is a 54-year-old man. He knows his right for wrong. When he was doing those crimes, he knows that there were consequences. Guess what Joe Biden did? He pardoned him up to the days of his own corruption shenanigan with Burisma in Ukraine, spanning 10 years ago. So he just left the boy off the hook. That's just it. And that is wrong. And that's why Trump has the bona fide to call it an abuse. Not that Trump is a saint. He too pardoned a couple of his friends.
Some Democrats are saying that had Kamala Harris won the election, perhaps he wouldn't have pardoned her. He would have had more faith in the justice system, perhaps.
But also, when you even look at it, even Obama, too, gave clemency to a lot of people. With one of the highest, on the day he was leaving, Obama was pardoning people up until the 19th of January that he left. So, please, Biden cannot bring himself out of all of this. He is also part of the rot and part of the mess. Is it because Hunter is a son? Is it because Hunter? What about people that?
Yes,
what about people that never get fairness in the criminal justice system?
Even
Look
Clinton.
at him. Even Clinton.
So he's not the first, and he's not going to be the last. I'm not going to come very hard on Biden. I think even in the statement that he released post his signing of the pardon, he had spoken as president and, very importantly, as a father. And he appealed to the humane side of Americans to see his point of view, especially because he felt that his son had been victimized because of his name and that perhaps the justice system wasn't fair to him. And so he said he had always believed and stood on the principle of speaking the truth to the American people. Yes. And on this note, he was going to speak the truth to them. And he felt that the justice system had been unfair to his son, especially because he had mentioned that for the crime that he was being charged for, a number of people because number one was that the form he filled for his gun, he didn't reveal or he didn't declare that he had a drug problem. And also that the drug problem affected him paying his taxes on time. However, that he was making amends to pay back the taxes with penalties on top. And so if not that he were the president's son, perhaps he'd have gotten a better hearing. Yes. And so on that basis, he was going to behave, act as a father, act as president, and forgive his son. Trump did it. And I don't think they even had strong reasons like this. No. Clinton did it for his half-brother. Obama did it for a number of people. So it's not first. The Constitution gives the power to the president to grant almost 100% constitutional pardon.
People that he was never going to pardon.
Yeah, he did that many times. He said that when he saw a miscarriage of justice, he describes it as a miscarriage of justice, that he had insisted. In June earlier this year, when he had been asked, he said he was going to allow the justice system take its course. Earlier, again in September, they asked the Democratic team, they said they were going to allow the justice system take its course. But I think following the fact that Kamala didn't win, like you mentioned, and Trump is coming in and they have it in for him, he didn't want his son to be victimized for his position. So as a father, I would leave that to him. But for him going to Angola, I'll just say a few words, and that is that a number of people have criticized his approach to Africa, being the first time in his 4-year tenure, and at the end of his tenure when he's visiting Africa. Yes. In terms of the race, China has become Africa's largest trade partner since 2013. 2013. And since then, you would imagine that America would want to demonstrate more presence and more partnership with Africa. Indeed. But the only thing they've done is called 49 heads of state to the United States for a summit. And now he's coming at the end. So he's been criticized for that, the hypocrisy of it all, and the seriousness of America in terms of taking the African continent seriously.
Okay. There are two corridors in question before us, with regard to President Biden's visit to Angola. There is what is called the Kwanzaa Corridor, which is the attempt to provide American support of about $6.9 million to make the Kwanzaa Corridor a World Heritage Site. Most of the slaves that were taken to Brazil and also to the United States, a total of about 4 million of them, to work in plantations, were taken through that corridor. The second corridor is the Lobito Corridor. The Lobito Corridor runs from the Democratic Republic of Congo through Zambia to Angola to the Atlantic Ocean. That's the geographical mapping of that Lobito Corridor, which is at the heart of the relationship between the United States and Angola. And what President Biden is trying to do is to see how he can protect American interests. What is taken from the mines in DRC is cobalt and copper, which is used for the development of artificial intelligence and other, infrastructure.
Yes.
And they have a real infrastructure project along that route, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, which the United States is supporting with $800 million, with an initial deposit to kickstart the project of $550 million. And in the less than 2 months that President Biden is spending, will be in office, he intends to activate and seal about 12 deals with Angola and some of those countries in that region. Yes, it's the first time he's visiting that region, but for bilateral reasons. It was at COP27 in Egypt, and he had also hosted in 2022 the US-Africa Summit, where he pledged $55 million to support African Union. But the question is, why is he discovering Africa so late in the
December.
Day? As a lame duck president that is on his way out. Now the issue is, he doesn't seem to have prioritized Africa, despite all protestations to the contrary. He has been to the UK 5 times, Middle East, Latin America, Asia, and everywhere in the world. But this Angola trip is strategic for him because of the competition with China and Russia, who are clearly ahead. The other question you want to ask is, will Trump continue with this? Now, in American foreign policy process, when it comes to interests like this, competition with China and Russia, they tend to be bipartisan.
Yes.
So we are expecting that Russia will continue, that Trump will continue on
Finally,
that about Biden pardoning his son, well, if you were the father, wouldn't you have done the same? Knowing that the man that is coming, Donald Trump, is not likely to be nice. You want to leave your son in jail while Donald Trump is president. But he says there's been a miscarriage of justice. Right. But Trump is now saying that when he gets in there, he's going to free those he calls the J6 hostages, that he's going to release them too, because they too, the people involved in that January 6th, 2021 insurrection, are victims also of miscarriage of justice. But all of them, just final point, is that presidential powers are being used anywhere in the world to encourage relatives, to help relatives. The same Trump that is talking. Charles Kushner, that he pardoned before he left office, he has made him ambassador to France.
He has.
Massad Boulos, which is our Nigerian collection, because Massad Boulos is a Nigerian. He has appointed a special advisor for Middle East affairs.
Exactly.
So who is it to talk about using presidential powers to help relatives?
And abusing
Obama did it, as somebody mentioned.
Zayo did.
Clinton did it when he pardoned Roger Clinton.
He sure did. All righty. Thank you all for your thoughts. Let's move on to newspapers because I'd love to hear your thoughts on these stories too. Let's take a look at the front page of This Day this morning. This Day leads with the latest twist in this tax reform bill. Now, the presidency has insisted that there is no provision that will impoverish the North. President Tinubu, likewise, has reportedly welcomed the public debate generated by this bill. Now, on the other side of this tax reform coin is the Punch, which leads with the PDP and other groups calling for broader consultations amongst relevant stakeholders to address concerns over the tax bill currently before the National Assembly for consideration and passage. Now, the Tribune and the New Telegraph also lead with tax reform, but featured just above the New Telegraph's masthead is the federal government seeks South Africa's backing for G20 and BRICS, as well as BRICS Development Bank membership. Now, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Bianca Ojukwu, made the request during her closing remarks at the ministerial session of the 11th Nigeria-South Africa Bi-National Commission in Cape Town in South Africa. Now, the Daily Trust reports that 229 police officers have been killed in the 22 months between January 2023 and October 24. That is according to an investigation done by the Daily Trust paper itself. The Guardian leads with the Electricity Act. Its headline says that states are facing a subsidy burden as Lagos leads with a $10 billion deal as well as legislation. Now, speaking of Lagos and other states, the article says that with subsidies growing by 260 billion naira monthly and reaching about 1.9 trillion naira as of November, most states like Lagos, Oyo, Edo, Kogi and Enugu are taking over the regulation of their respective territories, and they may well need to work out a cost-reflective tariff or face the burden of carrying subsidies for the masses. To Ghana now, and Ghana's Daily Graphic leads with the road to Jubilee House. Their headline asks who will win Greater Accra, because it is widely believed that whoever takes that region will win the election. But some political analysts are saying that they don't actually believe that whoever will take Greater Accra will take the presidency, being that Greater Accra does have the largest voting population. And then finally to the United Kingdom, if we take a look at the front page of the Daily Express, for those who watch MasterChef or who've been following the debacle involving the presenter of the show, Greg Wallace, he has now apologized for his comments, blaming a certain section of the public. He referred to a handful of middle-class women of a certain age for the complaints he had currently been facing. And that is, of course, as other newspapers pick up on the story there. So he has apologized for his comments there. And we'll see if he's forgiven. Those are our stories from around the world.
I mean, the biggest story in the land has been the tax bill.
Sure.
And I think there's a lot of clarity on it now. I think there's no point waiting any further. You know, some people were asking why the rush as regards the tax bill. Once you can get your data, once you can get your facts out on something, there's no point keeping it waiting any longer. So at least we can see the effect of this tax bill 1 or 2 years before the elections. There is no rush at all. All the arguments have been tackled. They still want to have a, what's it called?
Debate or
a public hearing. They should have it. If you do 50 billion public hearings, you will never hear anything bigger or better than what Taiwo Yedele and the men said yesterday. So let's stop deceiving ourselves. So please, it's incumbent on us to pass this bill so we'd actually see the workers. Yes, see, I would even now say pass it, because the taste of the pudding is the eating. When you start to practice this bill and you see there are loopholes, you cannot gather after testing it and say, okay, let's do it. In tech, there's something called testing, beta testing.
Sure.
Before you put an app out, you test. So the way you pass it, it's still going to be up for review. Agreed. So there is no rush about it or anything. If you have 50,000 public hearing, this is still going to be the resolution. I endorse this bill. Pass.
Endorsed. All right.
We've heard
I
it.
think one other clarification was he made a clarification on the third party, the provisions that we had talked about yesterday about having a third party administer or manage the tax process, and he said he's actually against it, and he's going to recommend that it's a waste of money for many governments, and he would recommend that that's not in any way implemented. So I think that's something to hold him to, and that's why we said that rather than just throw everything out, let's debate the key issues,
right,
you know, the key concerns, and strengthen the bill, but not throw it. There are too many advantages, you know, of that bill to just for us to just say, oh, let's withdraw it and let's go back, because
right,
it's not
I'm
necessary.
happy you spoke about that,
Yeah.
Ayo, the third party sensitive because we must also know the terms of reference for the country.
Absolutely.
Because we have a lot of people that have leanings in government that have leanings to companies that provide exact consultancy service of collection through application that can do those third parties. That's why we raise that.
So he's come out to explain that he wasn't for it. And
Very
so it
good.
would be great for him maybe to reword that section of the bill so that it's clearer to say that there would be no third-party administration so that people can have more faith and trust in that bill. And then finally, just to touch on the NLC strike in certain parts of the state. It's been ongoing, I think, from Monday. And the reaction of different state governors. So the strike is as a result of the non-implementation of the new minimum wage by some states. While some states are making moves and efforts to even pay above the recommended minimum wage, some are saying they are unable to pay it. But I'm surprised to see states like Kaduna on that list. I'm surprised to see some states like even is it Enugu, Governor it's a bit shameful that states like that cannot pay the minimum wage. I think it's quite shameful. So they should get to the negotiation table.
Agreed.
Both parties suffer when there's a strike action such as this, and workers in those states have a right to protest. If their colleagues in other states are earning at least the threshold of the minimum wage, they have a right to also earn.
Absolutely.
And it's also their legal right to earn that. But we'll see how that emerges. But I hope that because hospitals are suffering, as you know, lives are at risk, and a lot of things going on in these states. So that we put some spotlight on that. Let the governors take responsibility for their states.
Agreed. Thank you.
Well, the main story that interests me, front page of the Times of London and also Daily Telegraph. Yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, gave his first major foreign policy speech at the Lord Mayor's banquet in London, in which he more or less spelled out the direction of his foreign policy interests. And what did he say? He said, for example, that the United States will remain very important as a strategic partner, and that, under his watch, Britain is going to get closer and closer to the United States. But however, the Daily Telegraph story says this will not be at the expense of the relationship with the European Union, with Europe, because there are some allies of, President Trump who are saying that when President Trump gets into office, they should move closer. That Britain should move closer to the US. And he's saying, look, our interest is to balance both. We build a transatlantic bond with the United States. At the same time, we'll deepen our ties within the European, geopolitical zone. The second major point that he made has to do with appealing to the United States about Ukraine.
Right.
And he's saying that, look, we can't afford to have the risk of North Korean troops, Russia, the aggressor, the intractable, erratic aggressor, as he described Russia, and then Iranian missiles coming together. And that for any ceasefire deal, because there's this talk about Trump will solve the problem within 24 hours, that before any ceasefire deal can take place, Ukraine must be in the strongest possible position, in a position of strength. Those were the two major takeaways from his first major foreign policy speech at the Lord Mayor's banquet in London.
Thank you, Dr. Abati.
Well, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
I said Enugu is Ebonyi State.
Ebonyi
State, yes. But thank you. Always a delight to see you, and see you again tomorrow morning.